So one thing I tell all my ACH students when we first started ACH training is this: become a lazy therapist and become a dumb therapist. Now, jokes aside, it's a bit crude, but it's really, really true. This whole thing about being a dumb therapist, what it does is stops you as the therapist or a coach making assumptions about what your client needs, what they want, what their root cause is, what the end result will be, and worst off, making assumptions about how you're going to heal your client based on the technique you're going to use. Now, what happens if you start making a lot of assumptions? You start veering the session the way that you want it to go. And here's the thing: how do you know that's what a client needs? How do you know what the root cause is? Your client doesn't know. And unless you can understand conscious versus unconscious information, you may never know. How could you script or prepare this stuff? Because now you're making assumptions. You're making assumptions that my client will relax if I walk them down some stairs. You're making assumptions that if my client's a smoker, I'm going to have them visualize a cigarette and have them shoot it down with a machine gun. Yes, I've seen that technique. But again, what's that doing now? That's working with the symptoms. But jokes aside or information aside, you're now working not only with the symptom, but now you're forcing a client to do what you want them to do. I saw a therapist on social media quite a while back who said, can you use hypnosis over Zoom and Skype? Okay, he was answering this question. It's a great question to answer. But then he said, all my client has to do is listen to my suggestions, listen to my techniques, listen to the images I want them to have. It's a lot of what I want my client to have. But how do you know that's what's best for your client? You're forcing a client to do what you want them to do. So by being a dumb therapist and making no assumptions, here's what I mean. It literally means going into a session, no thoughts in your head, no assumptions, no conclusions, not listening to your client's problem, because really they're just going to lie about their problem and give you conclusions anyway, and investigate the problem as if it was the first time they had talked to you ever before. As soon as you start making assumptions, like a client says, well, I have anxiety and what I want is to feel really confident in life. And you think, okay, I've got a really good confident technique, or I'm going to do a regression and get rid of my client's childhood trauma or past life stuff, because that's the reason they don't have confidence. Now, what are you doing? You're inside your head concluding things based on your client's assumptions. It gets very, very messy. But all in all, guys, by going into a session a little bit lazy, as in not wanting to do anything, don't try and solve the problem. We've talked about these principles before. But a big thing is being a little bit dumb and not assuming anything. What's going to happen with you as a therapist? You'll actually start hearing what your client's telling you. You'll actually see the right unconscious moments. You'll actually know what technique and strategy to use on the fly. How could you set up a regression or a visualization beforehand if you don't even know what your client needs? Believe it or not, if you're good at this, your clients will tell you how they want to be healed. Your client will spontaneously have a regression at the right time where you don't have to do anything for it. Your client will spontaneously have the right visualization, the right emotions, all of this stuff. But if you're too busy trying to force a client down the path you want them to go, you're now telling them what to do and you're forcing the unconscious mind to do what you want it to do. And that always backfires. And how do I know this, or how should you know this? If you're having to see your client time after time after time after time, and you're repeating the same visualization, reading the same script, the same technique, the same regression, the same whatever it is over and over, thinking that if I do it enough times, repetition will help. What are you doing? You're spinning around the same problem every single time. So go into the session, no thoughts, no ideas. How could you not only prepare for this stuff, but how do you know what you're going to say until your client answers the questions you have for them? So take a step back, get rid of your assumptions, forget about the all problems exist because of anxiety or all problems exist because of past life. Forget about that stuff, because that's now a mentor making assumptions. They're basically telling you what they think. As a lot of thinking goes on and we forget about the client. Take a step back, don't make any assumptions, and investigate a client's problem correctly, and then wait for these things to spontaneously turn up. I tell my students all the time that your client will go into trance the way that they want to go into trance. They'll go as deep as they need. They'll have the visualizations they need. They'll have the regression if they need it. They'll have the emotions if they need it. And notice what I'm saying here, if they need it. They're still in control. And their unconscious mind is way more intelligent than me. So why would I tell them what to do, where instead I could just invite the unconscious mind to do all this stuff, and I'll just take a bit of a backseat and just steer the conversation to make sure the client stays safe while they're doing their own therapy. Now, a lot of therapists live by this and they say, like, I just set up this space for my client. I have them do self-healing and stuff like that. And while they say it, they don't apply it, because then on the next breath, they're doing the techniques, they're doing the timelines, they're doing the regression. They're forcing their client to have visualization. If their client has an emotion, they're asking their client, what color is it? Can you take it out of your body? Can you spin it around? Now I'm forcing a client to do something that I want them to do, with hopes that the technique of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step technique will have the outcome, which is step 6. And it doesn't work like that, because people don't work like that. And definitely their mind doesn't. So guys, being a dumb therapist, get rid of your assumptions, essentially unlearn a lot of the stuff around techniques, and be with your client, sit with your client, find out what they want, and be patient enough for all those techniques and those healing strategies you have to organically happen inside your client first, and then you can take credit for it. All right, guys, hopefully that helps.